guys, this is Joel Kennedy with Kennedy Violins. Do you find it difficult to maintain control of your bow when you're trying to bounce it sometimes? Well, today I'm going to show you some exercises that's going to make it way easier. So guys, we're talking about bouncing the bow today. Now, I'm kind of curious actually, what do you guys find most difficult about bouncing the bow or spiccato on your instrument? Put it in the comments below. Let's take a little poll here. I'm kind of curious what people say. So anyway, like I mentioned, today's video is about how to bounce your bow, or otherwise known as spiccato, right? So for the rest of the video, I'll just be referring it to as spiccato. Now, a spiccato stroke is just any stroke that leaves your instrument, where your bow leaves your instrument. And there's many different types of spiccato. I'm not going to be talking about all the different types of spiccato today. What I'm going to talk about today is the basic mechanics of spiccato. And I'm going to give you a real easy basic exercise. So if you are completely new to spiccato, this is going to be really easy to just try to get your foot in the door and be able to do spiccato. Because if you're successful with just a basic back and forth spiccato, and you can get up to a high speed, then, well, the world is your oyster. You can do all kinds of advanced techniques, and you can do ricochet strokes and sautille strokes and martelé and all kinds of stuff. You just need a basic type of spiccato, so that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so what is successful spiccato? Well, successful spiccato is control. Control is the most difficult thing about, spiccato in general, because you have got to control your bow. If you have control, then you can pretty much do anything you want with spiccato, any kind of dynamic, any kind of sound, any kind of speed. So control is your friend. So there are two things that you need to develop control over your bow. So number one would be you have to practice with a metronome. Now I know I say this a lot, but believe me, every great player that you know, they're in love with their metronome. So fall in love with your metronome. Always practice with the metronome, because the metronome is perfection. It will make your stroke even, it will make your stroke clean, it will help you be relaxed, and if you use the metronome, every time you practice, you know what speed at which you practiced the day before, and the speed that you're practicing today, and the speed that you want to practice the next day. It's a way for keeping track of things, because when you practice spiccato, you practice with a slow speed and then you build the speed. So the metronome is super important. Okay, and now the second thing is you want a relaxed bow hand. Now, you can learn how to bounce your bow if you do not have a relaxed bow hand. But trust me, you're going to be pushing a rock up a hill. You've got to have a relaxed bow hand. Not having a relaxed bow hand, it's like, learning to drive with your feet. Maybe you can get really good at it, but, just about anybody who's reasonably good driving with their hands they're gonna pass you. They're gonna be way better at it. So you wanna start right off the get-go with having a relaxed bow hand. Now, how do you have a relaxed bow hand? Well, it means no tight joints, no straight joints, right? You've gotta have a bent thumb, right? A bent thumb and a bent pinky. Remember, any straight joint means tension. Tension is your arch enemy. You don't want any kind of tension, because when you have tension, then your joint can't function the way that it's supposed to function. So you want to have relaxed pinky on top of that bow that's bent, and you want to have a relaxed and bent thumb on the bottom. Now, when we first start our exercises, your hand will not be relaxed. It's probably going to be pretty tight, but that's okay. As you progress through your exercises and the spiccato gets faster, your bow hand will naturally start to get more relaxed all the time. It's just a natural product of you practicing your spiccato properly with your joints in the right spot. The relaxed hand will come eventually. Okay, and just a few points to mention about spiccato. As you speed up your spiccato, a few things are going to change, okay? So when you first start playing spiccato, where you bounce in the bow is going to change. So the slower the spiccato, the lower in the bow. The faster the spiccato, the higher in the bow, okay? So that's about 9 or 10 inches up from the frog. It's a slow spiccato. As you speed up, it changes where it is in the bow. So if you're doing a fast stroke, like a sautille, you're going to be all the way up here. So you went from here all the way up here. So that's just one little kind of evolution that you want to notice. The other thing is that the faster your spiccato is, the less your bow will lift vertically from the string. So when you're doing a slow spiccato, it's lifting quite a bit. But as the spiccato speeds up, then that gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's where that relaxed bow hand comes into play. As you use your hand less, then your hand has more of an opportunity to be relaxed. The other thing that I'll mention is the slower your spiccato is, the more you are in control of the movement. The faster the spiccato is, the more your bow is doing the work. So when it's slow, you're doing most of the work. When you speed up, the bow is doing most of the work, okay? So that relationship with you and the bow will evolve, it'll change, okay? So when I'm going slow, I'm controlling every amount. I'm controlling it. It hits and I lift, it hits and I lift, and it hits. I'm controlling it a lot. There's a lot of action here with my hand and my arm. But as I speed up, the natural bounce of the bow starts to take over. So when you get to a certain point, you're doing like Sadier, the bow is doing most of the work. You're mostly just moving your hand a little bit, and the bow is doing everything. Your bow has a natural bounce engineered into it. So the faster your bow stroke is, the more the bow does the work. Okay, and then one other little thing I'll mention as well. Now, the exercise that I'm going to teach you, you're going to start like this, above the string, and then you hit the string, okay? Now, there is a technique of teaching this where you actually start from the string, right? You start from the string and then bounce. I'm not going to teach you guys that technique. It's a lot more difficult technique to teach. It's a lot more difficult technique to learn. Although it will yield very, very good results. It is mostly a technique that only works when you're being guided by a very experienced teacher. Now, if you're not being guided by a very experienced teacher and you're just watching YouTube videos to try to learn how to bounce your bow, then I'm going to show you the easier exercise that almost guarantees you a great measure of success. Okay, so your first exercise, the first thing you want to do is learn the mechanics of the bounce. You want to learn the general motion, right? So all you're going to do is pick that spot about 9 or 10 inches above your frog, and after a while you'll develop a feel and you'll kind of know where your bow wants to bounce, okay? And you're just going to drop it and go up, drop it and go up, right? Try to produce a good sound. Try to make sure you always bounce your bow in the middle of your fingerboard and your bridge. It's got to be in the middle. That's where the string is squishiest. It's going to be easiest for you to produce a warm sound. So right in there. And then you want to think of your bow coming down like a bowl, right? So it's kind of round. When it comes down, it hits, and the bow stroke is maybe about this long, and then it leaves. It's almost like an airplane. It comes down and it lands and it takes off. The airplane lands and it takes off like a bowl. Now, if you go straight down like this, well, then that's going to create more of an angular sound, more of a harsh sound. So you might have to avoid that. So more of a bowl. But really, it's just your ear. Your ear will tell your hand how to function. As long as you listen really, really hard to the quality of your sound, your body will do most of the work. Your body will figure out what it needs to do to produce the best sound that you can. So you don't have to know every little tiny part of the math equation. If you use your ear, your body will usually follow. Okay, now you're going to try 4 bounces per string. Try every string. So get pretty good at it. So you feel pretty comfortable. Try every string. Okay, so when you feel like you're at a fairly good control, you're holding your bow properly, it's as relaxed as it can be, you're striking the instrument in between the fingerboard and the bridge, you feel like it's pretty even, then it's time to start using the metronome. Okay, so I got the metronome on. It's on 62 BPM, or beats per minute, right? Now here's where all the magic begins. All you have to do is make sure you always stay with the metronome, and then every day you gradually speed the metronome up. Eventually, you're going to have way faster speeds with your spiccato, and you will be in control, okay? So what we're going to do is we're just going to do 4 bounces per note, and we're going to do open 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? Just basically a scale on each string. I'll show you. Try to produce a good sound with the metronome perfectly. Control every aspect of it. Try to keep your right hand so relaxed that it feels like you're going to drop your bow. Always bouncing it in the same spot. Okay? So that's about it. Now that's 62 BPM. That's really slow. Okay? Then maybe you'll speed it up, 5 beats every day. Maybe 10 at the absolute very most. Why be in a huge hurry, Just do a little bit. Remember, practicing is about consistency. So just a little bit every day. Okay? So now I'll speed it up to about, I don't know, let's say 122, okay? Your goal speed should be, let's say maybe 202 eventually, about 202. So we'll put it on 122. Perfectly with the metronome. Okay, good. Now your goal speed, like I said, might be, let's say, like around, 202 or something ridiculous. Okay, I'll put it on like 192 now. Can you tell I like twos? Yeah. Okay, and just do that on every string. Okay. So that is the first part of your exercise. You're just playing one bounce per beat with the metronome and be able to do it on all strings. So now you're going to make it a little bit harder. Now you're going to do 2 bounces, basically eighth notes. You're going to do 2 bounces per note for your exercise. Okay, I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so I've got the metronome on, I don't know, 155 or something. So now, instead of doing 4 bounces, I'm going to do 2 bounces per note. Okay? And then also, speed that one up. Get that one, pretty fast. Okay? So, now that's going to make it a lot harder. When you do less bounces per note, it actually gets quite a bit harder because you're changing the string length when you put a finger down, and that changes the way the bow bounces. So you have to kind of acclimate to that. Then the final thing is 1 beat per, 1 bounce per note, but you're only playing each note 1 time. Okay, so once you get to that point, okay, then you can start doing entire scales. So the third part of it is, instead of doing just 4 strings with the same pattern, now start playing your scales. 1 octave scale, 2 octave scale, 3 octave scale, maybe even a 4 octave scale if you're a crazy violinist, right? So, and it's going to be a great warm-up as well. Okay, so let's just do like a 2 octave scale. And then you go back down. Or you can try 2 bounces. Or 4 bounces. Okay? Okay, good. So I think you get the right idea, right? So you're just gradually making it more difficult and more difficult every time. And then you're changing how many bounces you do per note. You're changing the speeds. But of course, in the very beginning, you're just focused on getting it faster. You're focusing on getting it to that 192 or 202. And then you start experimenting with, incorporating that with your scales. Okay, so you can do 1 bounce per note, 2 bounces per note. You can even do triplets, right? So the beat, just triplet, 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 da 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 da, right? And then also 4 beats per note. And so here's the beauty of this. warm-ups are really, really important. I've talked about warm-ups before. I've done videos on warm-ups before. But you can use this as part of your warm-up. So the great thing is that you can get warmed up. You get your body warmed up. You get your fingers warmed up. You get your rosin warmed up on your bow. Your instrument's getting all warmed up. Your brain's getting warmed up. At the same time, you're learning spiccato. You're improving your spiccato every time you warm up, right? So once you get to a certain point, you just basically have that one warm-up routine. You play your 3-octave scale, 4 bounces, 2 bounces, or 1 bounce per note, all the way up, all the way down, and that's your practice routine, And it's gonna really improve your spiccato almost accidentally. But the key is to listen, and the key is also to maintain control. And remember, control equals a relaxed bow hand. Okay, guys, so I hope I answered a few questions today. I hope I was of some help. If you like these videos, hit that subscribe button. Hit that alert bell so you get a notification when I create a new video. Because I'm always, trying to figure out ways that I can be of service to the musical community. So, put some comments down there and let me know. And, don't forget, here at Kennedy Violins, we're all players and teachers. So we're always happy to answer any kind of questions you guys have anytime. Thanks, guys.